kill him.
Okay, we're ready to go, John.
So,
Yep, we're good.
good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting for September 27th, 2017. And in compliance with the Massachusetts open meeting laws, we're being video and audio taped. We have a lot on the agenda tonight. First, we have a continued public hearing for 18 Union Street, and I don't see the folks here yet. Coming in the door.
Do you want to talk to Lou before we open that hearing? You want to talk to Lou for a couple minutes?
I can do that.
Perfect.
All right, well, they're getting setting up. Mr. Petrosi's here to go over a couple of things in his roadway that's in the final stage of construction. I did meet with Lou out at the site. He had a couple of issues that I suggested he should bring to the board just to get your acquiescence on it. Bob McGee was out there. Bob McGee knows of what's what. And Lou, I'll just let you explain the two things that you're looking for, okay?
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Petrosi from Wall Street Development. Just want to hand out, just for visual, so you have an idea of what we're talking about. This is the portion of the as-built plan that we had prepared several months ago. And when they paved the roadway, they paved the turning radius a little bit wider than
Yep.
what is shown on the original plan. What's shaded in pink is the area that should have, where the turning radius should be. The line on the inside is actually where it is, where we had a Cape Cod berm, which has since been removed, and the sidewalk has been constructed in the appropriate location. So the question is, the request is to allow a wider turning radius than what was originally shown on the plan, and the benefit of that is that it allows for larger trucks, buses, and other vehicles to make that turn rather than going back to what was originally proposed. Let me just show you a photograph of what, I just passed these around, but
Those are the ones in this handout?
yeah.
Okay.
So what you see there is the line of where the radius should be as it's painted on the ground. So what would happen if we went back to the original plan, this pavement would be cut out, the grass strip would just be wider
Yep.
than it currently is.
Yep.
So after discussing it with Bob and John, we thought perhaps that we may want a wider turning radius there for the school bus to get around and come up and around, and other construction vehicles. The second request was when they paved the sidewalk along Winston Road, in a couple of areas, the sidewalk was paved a little bit wider than what was the minimum requirement of 5 feet. And in the particular location where we measured happened to be where we constructed the handicap ramp. So rather than cut everything up, we're asking it to be allowed to stay at approximately 5 feet 6 inches, and the grass strip will be a little bit narrower in that location. So those two.
How many feet of sidewalk are we talking about?
Lengthwise, it's really kind of in this section. It varies, but mostly in that section where the handicap ramp is in this location.
Yeah.
And so it's
not much.
It's if you put an eye to it, you really don't notice it, but if you actually put a tape to it, you will notice it.
Just a couple of comments. Thanks, Lou. My points are, when I talked to Lou, the change in the radius really is still in the right-of-way, which is the main thing. So he's not infringing on private property. He's not needing to get an easement. And to move that back for the sake of making the radius according to plans, well, what you're talking about is digging up cement handicap ramps on both sides. There's a junction box there with a lot of electric connections. You're talking about moving all of that, and really, I think that's kind of punitive just for the fact that he's got the radius off a few feet. And again, it's still all in the town's right-of-way. On the sidewalk thing, the same way, the sidewalk extra, and this happens all the time on construction, the sidewalks could vary not exactly 5 feet. In this case, he's got a section that may be 5 feet, 5 inches or so, but it's taking away from probably a 6-foot grass strip. So looking at it, it really is not even noticeable. And the thing is, too, this sidewalk abuts another, these cement handicap ramps are everywhere. So again, if you made the sidewalk less, you're talking about jackhammering up the whole cement handicap ramp just for the sake of a few inches. So I thought it was absolutely a fair request. I think it's a minor change, and I think Bob McGee, he is not here, but on the site, he did agree with me.
Yeah.
So that being said, comments?
Yeah, what was Bob's comment on the road radius?
That really, if anything, it's a help for, like
Yeah.
Lou said, big trucks or buses or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, that it's still in the right of way, so it
Yeah.
really doesn't present any other issues.
Yeah.
So, and digging out and cutting back a sidewalk really gets the integrity of the edge of that sidewalk when you start saw cutting that, along with the cement handicap ramps that would have to be cut back. So really, I didn't think that was much of an issue at all. But any other questions, Walter?
Not on these, no.
Okay.
But something else, but that's all right.
First of all, in something like this, we have to take a vote on whether we consider this a minor change. A major change would require a opening of a public hearing and a notification of abutters and all that, which I personally think is far from necessary. So if I can have a motion to categorize this change as minor, I would
move
accept
to
it.
categorize the requested 2 changes as minor.
Second, anybody?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Vote to, a motion to approve the 2 minor changes stated in his letter September 27th that we just spoke about.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
You had other comments on this particular thing, Walter?
Yeah, not on this, but on the, where's the tree planting status?
They're ordered, we're just waiting for kind of a break in the weather, I guess, and probably within 2 weeks, and then timing it so that we've got pavement scheduled for the end of October, basically. So,
Tree's gonna make it in this fall.
oh yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Lou, you're all set. Thank you for cooking me in. Now, 18 Union Street. You're on.
Good evening. For the record, my name's Tom DePlacido, Four Oaks Corporation. Here at the continued hearing with the site development plan for 18 Union Street. Basically, when we left the last hearing, there was some question about drainage and actually feeding into the public drainage going down Union Street. With a little bit of later research that drains out to a culvert, we discovered that we cannot drain into that, so we actually had to keep all the drainage on site. So everything's on site now. It was quite a challenge, took us a little bit with that. Rick is going to, Goodrow from United Consultants is going to go over those details with that, and also some of the changes and things and revisions that he had to make based on the comments from the last public hearing. After him, we did some analysis and looked at the retaining walls, reduced the heights of those. We're actually really happy with the way that came out with some things based on some of the comments from the board and some of the flexibility that we had to move that around. Jason Miller here is from Bowler is going to review that. And then also there was some traffic revisions and questions, and Bill Scully's here to give you an overview of that. I know Beta hasn't commented on it, but basically I just want to make sure the board's aware of everything that we've done, and so that we have comments back, everybody's knows what's happening, and we can always move forward. Thank you.
Is Mr. McGackin here? I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong.
Mark McGuckie.
Mark McGuckian? We did have a meet with the abutter. Mark had called me, asked me to meet with him. He was meeting with the developer, and we ended up satisfying his concerns. The well that he was worried about being compromised was not a well. It was a septic tank, which the developer has offered to remove and backfill, which is either done or being done. He was concerned. He has a beautiful buffer there of trees. The developer offered to actually put all the trees on the plan and ensure that none of the trees on either side were going to be taken down. And I think the new plan now has the wall coming in a little bit more. I think he understands now about the site distance changes. When we take the elevation down 8 or 9 feet, that's going to go around that whole radius. The other positive change, he actually, in that driveway with limited site distance, he has a bus stop there that his kids get picked up on. And he was concerned about that, although this project doesn't affect it per se, but what the developer and we asked to do and agreed is we're going to, aside from taking down all of that hill to get site distance right across through the rotary, we're going to continue the sidewalk that was actually only going to come down part of the way on Liberty Lane and bring it all the way around, and the sidewalk now is going to actually come over to the abutter's property, so we'll have a safer place to sit with the bus stop. So those changes were all agreed upon, and are they incorporated in these plans now, Rick?
They are, Mr. Chairman. We've extended the sidewalk, which originally ended here at the driveway entrance, down to their property. We have located all the trees, as well as the cesspool on the McGluckian's property, and I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it correctly either. So those changes have been made. We've pulled the retaining wall about 5 or 6 feet off the property line here. We've also introduced, which I've shown here in green, some steeper grading that would be armored with riprap. And
While we're waiting, are those existing trees or new trees, Rick?
these are existing trees
Yeah.
on the abutter's property
Yeah.
that they requested we field locate, which we did at that meeting. There are actually 2 rather large maple trees, and then a majority of the trees are evergreen, which provide a nice screen
Yep.
currently from their property to this property, and those will be remained. And what his suggestion was is that we move the retaining wall out, which we've done. So with the revised grading scheme and the relocation of the retaining wall, we're actually able to get this wall about 5 or 6 feet off the lot line, and the height of the wall is about 4 to 6 feet. So what we're going to propose, and what Jason from Bowler will be showing you, is some landscaping plans on how to address that, how areas I've shown here in yellow will be where there's another retaining wall located here. That area will be planted to kind of screen the height of the wall. This wall goes from a short height here to approximately the highest point at 10 feet. If you recall previously, we had 2 staggered walls there. So there's also a fence, which Jason will show you, a white vinyl fence, attractive fence that's going to be located on top of the wall with a planting area proposed in front of that. So we have that visual break of the retaining wall and then the fence kind of stepped. So we can get into that. Jason will get into that as well. What we've also done is we have looked at the stormwater for the site and containment of the stormwater on the site, and we've made some revisions to the original proposal, which was to capture the stormwater, treat the stormwater, and then discharge it into the existing drain system. So we're proposing an underground infiltration area here that will be for the proposed roof of the building, as well as catch basin 1. That catch basin unit has been proposed to be revised into a helical separator treatment unit to treat the captured water from that section of the parking lot. Catch basin 2 is where it was originally proposed. There's a trench drain now proposed here. That trench drain will route and capture the stormwater and route it along with the captured stormwater from catch basin 2 into a central area here, which is the CDS treatment unit, and then it'll go into that underground infiltration system there. This system has been designed to handle all 5 storm events that we analyzed: the 2-year, 10-year, 25-year, 50 and 100-year storm event. This system has been designed to handle and have no overflow from a 2, 10, or 25-year event. There is a slight overflow from the 50 and 100-year event that will occur from that basin. Additionally, we had
Where will the overflow go?
it will actually come out of the trench drain, which will surcharge, travel down the gutter and into that catch basin. So for instance, there's a summary in Appendix A of the drainage report that summarizes the rate and volume of the pre-development and post-development conditions and how there's a reduction. The reduction for a 100-year storm event is from about 3.8 cubic feet per second down to about 0.8 cubic feet per second. Additionally, there's a small area in the front of the building that's going to continue to drain off the site into the street gutter as it currently does. Surface conditions will be changed to a landscape condition and some brick paver sidewalks. That also contributes to that 0.8 cubic feet per second total number that's being captured in the existing street drain, which previously was, as I said, about 3.8 cubic feet per second down to 0.8 in the largest storm event.
So without losing everybody, basically, the post conditions after development, the runoff with the post conditions is actually going to be less than the conditions are right now.
That's correct.
I think that's the important part of the whole thing here.
And we have also added a loading space to the site here, which was one of the other items that was brought up. As you said, we've made the sidewalk connection from the town property across the entire frontage down to the driveway of the abutters. Yes,
And those sets of parallel, pardon me, sets of parallel lines represent the septic system, correct?
These lines here?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions on stormwater from the board? No. All right, we'll have the next person up. Right here. Kevin, could you, guess they pushed the chair back, he's moved it. Thank you. Great, yep.
Everybody see that okay? Now?
Right here.
All right. Good evening. My name is Jason Miller, landscape architect from Bowler, as Bowler engineer, and as Tom was saying. So we took the comments from the last meeting about the retaining wall, and we re-looked at this from really looking at it from Liberty Lane and how we could figure out how the walls would work and then the vegetation as well. So when you drive up to it, you're not just going to see the wall, the retaining wall along that edge. So one of the things that we did was have the wall come out and curve around and then have a series of evergreen plantings that are in front of it that will soften that wall. And this is where Rick was saying at the height of the wall at the most would be at 10 feet along here. And so you would still have evergreens here and you would just be able to see the top of it. And on top of that wall would be some more evergreens that are on top of there, and then you would have your white fence, which this is a image of what that fence would look like. And then these are also a few examples of the type of wall this is. It's a ledgestone. It's made to look more of a rock wall, which picks up on some of the other design vocabulary along Liberty Lane with the stone walls that existed. And then have this break up with a steeper slope that slopes up, and then you would have the evergreens that are in front of that would screen that hole. So the only thing that you would really see in this edge is just the evergreen trees themselves, and it'd be a mix of different evergreens, spruces or firs along there. And then this wall, with that being the 4 to 6 feet, as Rick was talking about, you wouldn't even see most of it from the driveway itself because of the way that this is a nice gradual slope up, and then having the evergreens on top of it, and then having a nice landscape edge between the back of the wall and then the abutter's property here. And then it just emphasizes more of that nice buffer planting that he has existing.
And that's the one that's 5 feet off the lot line.
Yes, this wall right here. And then we can continue our street trees planting along that edge as well. And then we may wind up, adding more evergreens along that edge to fill it in nicely. And then around the dumpster would be more low grow, and so it's a nice layer effect of the landscape from the pavement going up to the evergreens themselves. and then you have this, so the fence line, as Rick was saying, follows along here, and then it goes right along the back of the wall, and then it picks up again where you have the fence here, runs along the property line to there.
In adjusting the position of the wall and changing the curvature, et cetera, did it cost you any parking spaces?
How much you guys? Much improved over the last plan. And I think the neighbor was happy
Yeah.
also.
Yeah. Have the neighbors seen this?
No, has the neighbor seen this plan? It was explained to it, but I don't think he's
Yeah,
physically
okay, fair
seen
enough,
it.
yeah.
We actually wanted to get the input of the board to make sure that they, like how we approach this and how we design this, and then we can finalize it and submit it to the data for their review.
All right, okay, very good. Thank you. So we're gonna get the short version of the traffic, because we didn't have a full study done, but I think we sent you off on your way to try to determine from historical data the speed coming down Union Street as approaches that egress of the building. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
So, again, for the record, Bill Scully with Green International.
The fuck, I come to.
Bill Scully with Green International affiliates.
It's for home use, it's not for in the room.
So, at the last meeting, there were a couple things. So one was the additional speed data going in and out of the roundabout on Union Street near the site drive, near in here. And we ended up setting tubes up, which you may have seen, about 80 feet south of the circle, capturing both directions, and we had that out there for 48 hours. In our report dated September 6th, which I believe the board,
We have a copy.
so we detail the data, summarize information. So I think in question, someone was suggesting it was very high speed going south past the site drive. What we found was about 90% of the people are going between 20 and 29 miles an hour as they turn, and then start to proceed down southbound, which that's fine. We looked at it as if it was 30 miles an hour for our site distances. The average is average speed southbound was 23 miles an hour, and we measured that from almost 3,300 vehicles going past that.
The other 10% were doing what?
Well, they'd be doing over 29 miles an hour. So we did see 2% of the vehicles were doing over 30 miles an hour.
Okay.
So in general, I mean, we felt that it was low speed. It's lower, obviously, as you're going into the circle, and people are slowing down. So almost 90% were going 15 to 24 miles an hour, I believe, going in. So that's what we would expect on that. The other thing that that had come up was crashes around the circle, and so we did research that. 3 years of data. I think we identified 3 crashes in total over 3 years. One was a bike. One was a vehicle that hit the splitter island coming south, and I forget what the other vehicle was. But in general, I mean, 3 crashes over 3 years with the volume going through there is a very low incident of crashes. You do have visibility, and the town has taken steps in terms of trying to slow people down with the signage and everything. I did sit with the chief, and we went over that information, and he felt I wasn't seeing anything that he wasn't seeing, both from a speed and a crash. The last thing that was asked was to just test the movement of large vehicles, in particular the fire truck movement, to make sure they can get on the site and circle around the site, and we did that. So in the September 6th report, we've attached diagrams that demonstrate that. And what we had identified at that time was that the turn of the fire truck around the loading zone, the proposed loading zone, there was a little bit of an encroachment, and so we worked with the site engineer to do some adjustment of the loading zone. And the new set of that, we went back and tested once the site plan was adjusted, and the fire apparatus can turn into the site from that direction, turn in from this direction, circle around the site, and easily get out of the site and head back to the station. So,
Did you look, in terms of entrance, did you look at the alternative proposal, which is to come off the town hall driveway as well? In terms of turning radius for emergency vehicles?
yeah, we did. I don't think that was in the September 6th report because that wasn't the plan you guys were analyzing.
Just
So we have looked at it. Obviously, if the connection is coming off the town hall drive, this piece of it's going to be widened out.
Yes.
So, I mean, we were able to test that and make
Okay.
the movement. It's probably a little bit trickier than just making one turn. They have to come in and then turn again.
Betsy, do we have a letter from the fire chief on the access on this potential property?
I don't remember.
If we don't, could you ask Cole to give us in writing his comments on accessing and entering leaving the site?
This town hall prop,
Yes, this building, potentially, okay? Just make sure that he's confirming that everything works.
Both alternatives, I guess. 'cause
And
haven't
we
settled on
used,
one
I mean,
yet.
we used the ladder truck, the same layouts we've been using.
Right,
As we
so
got
he should
from
know
him.
about this. I'd just like something in writing for the file, that's all.
So these updated diagrams haven't been submitted, so we'll submit these this week to the board.
Okay, great. Very good.
Thank you.
Questions, guys?
Has any of this information been shared with Mark either? Because I know he was the one that was really driving the traffic and his beliefs on the speed and whatnot.
With who?
With the abutter, or no, not yet.
If he's come to the town to obtain copies of the report, I don't know.
Why don't you just reach out, Tommy, and tell him he was interested in the speed on Union Street? If he's interested in getting the historical data from the report,
I'll be happy to give him this.
send him a copy, okay? All right, super. Thanks, Kevin. Right, no other questions? So our consulting engineer reviewed the last plan, has not reviewed this plan because we just got it recently. So you'll be looking at this, Phil, and next time give us a recap on this latest plan.
Yep.
And is there anybody here in the audience for the 18 Union Street filing? Nobody. All right, so that being said, we can continue this meeting. When is our next meeting, Betsy?
October 25th.
Why don't we continue this? Do we have anybody else on yet?
Nope.
Why don't we continue this for 7 o'clock on October 25th, if somebody could make a motion?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll see you guys at 7 o'clock on the 25th, okay? Very good. Thank you. You're welcome. 7:15, we have the continuing open space special permit for Cranberry Heights. The Cranberry Heights folks here. Bob, is Mr. Bailey out there? And
Is this even like, it's supposed to be like 90-something degrees?
Yeah, I know.
it's supposed to change quick. Where's the path?
Just tomorrow afternoon. A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, this weekend's supposed to be in the 60s.
Yeah, right.
It'll finally be fall.
Yeah, Friday's gonna be nice in the 70s, they say, and dry.
Betsy, are you gonna put the plan up on the board?
That one?
The one they submitted, that one there, yeah. Can you make it bigger?
Sure can.
Zoom.
Okay, so this is Cranberry Heights, okay.
Since we just got the plans on this recently, we haven't obviously had time to review anything, so we're gonna keep this short, and I just wanna give you have you give us a quick overview of what was done since the last meeting. We've sent this off, I believe, already to our peer review consultants, and we'll get into it deeply on the next meeting.
Thank you, Chairman. On behalf of the applicant, I'm Steve O'Connell from Andrews Survey and Engineering. Well, I'm a little disappointed to hear that, Mr. Chairman. There wasn't really a lot to these plans. You had asked us to put cuts and fills, so that's really all that's there, which is, are just preliminary. We got the whole definitive phase to iron out.
Well, I'm sorry you're
engineering.
disappointed. I really am. But you know what? The regulations show if the plan's on here a week before the filing, we don't send them overnight and review it and come back and make statements. So anyway, that being said, I recognize your disappointment. Just go over and tell us what the changes were. I have to decide now whether the cuts and fills are substantial enough to get a consulting engineer in to review those, because right now it's only been looked at as an open space permit by our planner, who doesn't review open space cuts and fills. So anyways, just roughly explain what your finality was, okay?
Okay, thank you. So there are no changes to the layout for the lots in the roadway. We simply worked through some grading aspects of the project. So we're fixed with an elevation or a slope rather that comes off of Cranberry Meadow Road. That's about 4%. So we carry that 4% up into the project to a high point here, where then we start to go downhill to a low point. We've identified this area for stormwater collection. That was the area previously designed and approved for stormwater in that general vicinity. So we've got a low point right about in this area. Then we start to climb the hill again, because we're really just trying to work with the existing grades to the best we can and comply with subdivision regulations for centerline grade and minimize cuts and fills. So we climb up at about 5% until we get here to this intersection, and then we're relatively flat. I believe we're about 2%, 2 to 3% from here back out to Eagle Drive. So the largest cuts that occur are really at the top of this hill, because we're climbing, trying to minimize the fills, to try to balance the fills that we need with the cuts we have up here. So at the peak around here, we've got about a 14-foot cut. But as you can see, for your benefit, we graded out the lots in this area to show you what the extent of the grading will do in this area. So we graded out the back of this lot and how all these cuts in this area tie into existing grades. The rest of these, as you can see, this is a cut slope on this side of the road. This is a fill slope on this side of the road. A cut slope here, a fill slope here.
So how do they net out, Steve? I guess the neighbors are probably interested with everything going on across the way. What's the net truckloads coming off the site, roughly?
I have it on the plan. Betsy, can you pan over to the notes on the top right? All right. So we have a net cut of 100,000 yards. We have a cut volume of 114, a fill of 13, and a net cut of about 100,000.
So at 25 yards a truckload, how many trucks is that?
100,000 divided by 25.
400?
100,000 divided by 100 divided 40, 400.
100 times 100,000.
400.
Big trucks.
4,000.
4,000.
4,000.
4,000.
4,200.
That's why I asked for the calculator. It's easy to make a mistake. So right now, we have a public hearing. Have you talked to Mr. DePlacido, who's doing the front part?
The applicant has spoken with Mr. DePlacido.
All right,
yes.
because right now, we have a hearing coming up for safety of Lawrence Street, and what we're going to be addressing is what we need to make that safe. You folks are going to end up being a part of that, because right now, we've got a long stretch of roadway with 240 or 50 homes going in there with no sidewalk, with a 19-foot road. So just to let you know that when you guys come up with your plan, I'm not sure if you're going to be looking to waive one sidewalk or not. but I think the board is going to be asking you for some contribution when the town officials come up with what they think is needed to make this area safe, then you're going to have to be doing your pro rata share. And I did talk with the DPW and I talked with the fire chief. So you'll probably end up having a fire pressure test done because the elevation change to get the water up there is kind of significant. And right now, Mr. Marini here on Liberty Lane has already put one in and his grade is substantially less than yours. So that's going to be coming up down the road. But we had talked about a while ago, my guess is where the water line is going to be running up Lawrence Street. And with the pressure problems with a grade like that, you're probably going to be required for our board to run this, as I suggested, through Eagle Drive out to the valve that's on Lawrence Street, so there is a true loop.
Circulation, yeah.
So just keep that in mind, and right now we have a lot of input going on what really do we need physically to make this a safe place, and now that I see 4,000 more trucks, I'm sure nobody's excited about that. We may end up having you go back and try to minimize the trucks and cut that back because all of this happening at once is really a lot. So I think that if you can keep those few things in mind, and I just see Howard there, Howard, if you can give that some thought, we're going to have this thing, we're going to decide whether we need someone to review your cuts and fills or not. We'll do that over the next, probably this evening. And we'll come back next time and we'll take one step further. One of our members is not here tonight, obviously. And she had an issue, and one other member did at the time, and spoke about the lot that they really feel shouldn't be there. So we'll be bringing up that issue also at the next meeting. So I think as far as this open space plan, those are the things we're going to be probably addressing, trying to wrap this thing up. Okay? All right. Questions?
Yeah, just a small one. Beth, could you scroll that back up so we can see the layout? Thanks. It's a small point, but it looks like the cuts at both ends of the property, both the right side and the left side there, go outside the property lines. Is that right?
Where, here?
Well, at the front entrance, yeah, right there, and also back up, and I can't see the number of the lots, but that one and the one below it.
Well, we're creating those lot lines, so everything outside those is just the open space as part of the...
Fair enough, okay,
Yep.
still your property.
Yep.
But what about down here?
Well, that work can either be, a retaining wall can be designed to hold back that work, but I'm not sure if that would be desirable for the parties involved, including abutters. So we put a note that the proposed grading may be subject to an easement, but it could easily be accomplished with a retaining wall.
Steve, how long is the existing is it Cranberry Meadow Road?
Cranberry
How long is that,
Meadow.
the existing road that you're going to be coming off of?
I'd be guessing,
1,000 feet?
I was going to say maybe 1,500. It's more than 1,000, I believe.
1,500 feet.
But I'm just
So
guessing.
your water is going to be coming up Lawrence Street, up through Cranberry Meadows and into your new area.
I don't know if we've determined the details of whether it would come through Eagle Drive or Cranberry Meadow. I believe our preference was Eagle Drive.
Again, we'll be talking about that at the next time. We're going to get some documentation from the other town boards for the next meeting. We've been sort of shorthanded here with some issues in the office, no planner, so things aren't running exactly as smooth as we'd like them to be. But is anybody here for the Cranberry Heights subdivision or have any comments? Yes, sir? You just take the microphone and...
There's another one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Judici, Eagle Drive. A couple of comments, questions. First of all, just for clarification, the 4,000 number that you mentioned for everyone's purposes is truck loads, not truck trips. It's another project in town that had an issue distinguishing between truck loads and truck trips, so I just want to make that clear. Secondly, so I'm on Eagle Drive. When we bought our house 20 plus years ago, we bought our house on a cul-de-sac. That was an important consideration for us when we bought our house. I'm sure it was for others on our street. There's currently 5 houses on Eagle Drive, 20 some odd on Cranberry Meadow. I'm sure that was a consideration when they bought their houses as well. Now someone's coming along, and I understand they have a right to develop their property, and I get that. But now they're saying, all you folks no longer live on cul-de-sacs by connecting these two streets. So what I would like to suggest and request is to see if this could be reconfigured so that you would essentially have two cul-de-sacs, one an extension of Eagle Drive and one an extension of Cranberry Meadow. And essentially, the Eagle Drive cul-de-sac is already laid out. This would just be a question of pulling back that connecting road and making another cul-de-sac. Because, as I said, we put our life savings into this property. It was a big consideration when we bought our house, that we were buying something on a cul-de-sac. And this development would take that away from us and all the other neighbors.
So on this cul-de-sac, is yours a formal cul-de-sac?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Does it have a radius there for turning?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, so
The pavement as a
The pavements.
all right, so there must be a town owed right-of-way off of that cul-de-sac for a future connection, is that the story?
That's correct, yep. You can see it right here. Those lines come straight through the paved cul-de-sac right to the adjoining lines of this property.
See, unfortunately, we've dealt with this a few times before.
I know it's been an issue recently, and
Right,
I just
right.
wanted to
And
bring it up
unfortunately,
for
when
consideration.
folks buy- I understand, I do. Either way, the water connectivity, I think a lot of us feel is really important just to get the pressure there, because as I said, until the testing is done, we're not sure whether the pressure will make it up that high without a booster station.
I absolutely agree, and that could be accomplished through an easement from the end of the
Yeah, we-
Cranberry
Like I said, we've been
cul-de-sac
through
onto
that
Eagle Drive.
a few
So,
times. You all set?
thank you.
Thank you, you're welcome. Anybody else, question? All right, we will, so we'll have October 25th at 7:15. Walter?
Yeah, I move to continue the hearing for the open space preservation special permit for Cranberry Heights to October 25th at 7:15 PM.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, guys, we'll see you then.
Do you intend to discuss peer review of the cuts and fills this evening?
Yes, we're not right now, but probably later on in the meeting we will.
Okay.
All right, Kevin, you're going to be on.
Sure
We
would.
actually have 15 minutes, so,
Do something else.
yeah. Well, we have 15 minutes. Why don't we go over the Fox Run drainage status?
Yeah, is Bob out? We need Bob for that?
Where'd Bob go? There he is.
He's right
Right,
there.
we should, yeah.
There he is.
Bob is there.
Yeah, good.
So Bob, unfortunately, there was a peer review consultant had a change in engineering, so the tapes were reviewed, the current tapes. We have a report from Beta Engineering on the current status, but we do not have them matched up to see if there was further deterioration in the drainage pipes. So I apologize to people coming looking for that. Is if you were here at the last meeting, that was my specific instructions. That's mainly what we're looking for, because until we know that, we can't determine how to rectify the situation. So I think that since we've got a report on drainage, why don't you give us your report, and I'm assuming it's going to be similar to what we already have on record. And you can just give us, Phil, the main bullet points on
Sure,
what you discovered and looking at the,
So this is really just raw data. We had our staff go through each of the tapes that were given to us and just kind of document the issues that were discovered through the TV application, testing. And then we did a few screenshots of some of the more significant issues we found. So we can take this and compare that to the previous one that was done. I guess I wasn't aware that there
I'm
was one.
hoping that was the previous, do you have a copy of this, Bob? Could you let Bob have a copy of this? This is, and maybe the neighbors down the road would like a copy. This is very, very detailed. I don't remember the last one being this detailed. So basically, percentage-wise, you've seen of the whatever number of feet of concrete piping, how much do you think is compromised?
We haven't come up with a number of that. I wasn't, certainly we can estimate that based on.
All right, what are the depths of the problems? As far, are some of them just superficial cracks, or are some of them a lot more detailed?
There's a number of different issues. A lot of them are connection issues. There's a lot of cracking at connections.
bell.
At the bells, right?
Have you ever
And,
seen anything like this before in your experience?
I can't say that we've gone and TV lines after they're constructed, but I don't think I've seen older pipe systems with this kind of.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but could something like this be caused by the rubber gaskets not being put in the concrete pipes?
Based on what my experience,
Right, yeah.
it could be. My guess right now is the quality of the pipe and possibly the bedding situation.
Above and
for the
below,
pipe.
or just below, or maybe both?
Yeah, I without getting into the detail, something's. The amount of cracking at the bells typically means that either the bell is sitting on something hard and it wasn't compacted
Right.
subgrade very well, so
Right.
it's supported right.
Right.
That's one explanation, and then obviously material, if it's poor material.
Right.
There
Well,
seems to be some, and it could have been during construction, maybe the cover wasn't as, typically, when you get a lot of truckloads over pipes, and stuff like that,
All right.
some of these could have been broken,
All right.
I think there's a few places where a hole is punched through.
A hole?
Yeah, so that, that may be just, you got too big a material, some rocks on top, and then they punched through, so.
Right, Bob, do you know, were these pipes manufactured in this country?
I think all RCP is manufactured in this
I think
country.
our
Unless
reg-
it's metal, it's here, yes.
All right, okay, because I think our regulations call for everything going into the roads being American-made. Yeah, you folks will definitely want a copy of this report along with the pictures. It's really, really detailed. I apologize again for not having here what we had hoped, but I am going to let a few of you ask questions since you're good enough to come. So, anybody first?
Okay, Gary.
All right.
I'm Gary Searle at 245 Warren Drive. You have the old report, too? There was a report, dates back with previous cracks shown in it. I know there hasn't been a foot-by-foot comparison. That's what I just understood from John earlier. So there's two reports. There's some time frame that took place between them. And have you only looked at one report?
Correct. I wasn't aware that there was a previous report, and I just got onto this project this week, so.
Did Beta conduct the previous report? So they did both of them?
Correct.
And you said they wrote a report, they just didn't do a foot-by-foot comparison?
I'm not sure. What type of detail did the first report have, Bob? Was it similar to this?
Is there another mic?
Yeah, it's on the chair there, Bob.
Right.
Is this the trick one? Well, it's not on, but,
Well, then pass the other mic up, because we really do need to make sure the folks at home can hear.
Just a little history, as I remember it, is that there were 3 televised reports. Going back, the first one, I never saw. I didn't think that I had to review it. It was seen by somebody else, and if it was beyond Pulte, I'm not sure, but it was just, everything was clear and just fine. 18 months later, when I complained about the backfill, the material that was being used, the bedding that was being used, and some of the things that we saw there, we decided to have, and we had some redesign of the drainage, we decided to have the drainage system televised again. 18 months later, we found that there was substantial cracking. If I were to just throw out a percentage and don't hold me to it, the televising would probably have showed at least 30% cracking. So, not knowing, not making a decision as to what to do then, some time had gone by, we decided to televise it again and have a real better look at it. And one thing we know for sure, it's not going to heal. They can only get worse. So,
The question is, the report that you have from the first videoing, or the most recent that showed all the damage,
the last video.
right, does that have detail on it like this? Does it
Last
have?
two reports were, well, not the reports, but the televising were the same. I didn't see a report from the
Right,
last
so,
one.
you'll have to check to see if your last engineer did a report like this or not. If we're talking just about videotaping, then you have nothing to follow to find out, the distances and the sections and all that and compare them.
When this was, John, when this was done,
Right.
these are done by DMH with numbers and CBs with numbers, and you can actually apply, you can follow right with a set of drawings and just put a description right on the drawing of where the deficiencies were.
All right, so that should help Phil to go to compare these things with this report.
Well, I think Phil probably knows what I'm talking about. You
Yeah,
can
yeah,
just
yeah.
go right up on the map,
All right,
because the
good.
guy that televised this was very
All right,
explicit.
that's my main thing, because like I said, I don't know if I've ever seen a
Do you
report
know it's the
this
same
detailed.
It was a different company.
But right here. So if
It all
you're,
depends on the quality of the,
all right,
because, Chris, who helped me out with this, he just listened to him and they talked the whole thing, so he knew where, and he was able to produce this,
okay, good.
so. I don't know if the other TV were of the same quality.
All right. Well, hopefully, once you get back into this, you can let us know whether you're going to be able to do the match that we're looking for, so we can see which way to go, okay?
Yep, yep.
So this
Right,
report and the previous report were conducted by Beta. So their way of detailing and summarizing a report should be similar, one report to the next?
Unfortunately, I just came onto the project and I was given this task, and so we did this. I didn't even know there was another report done.
Yeah, and my question was really just going to a high-level summary, because if there was another report written by the same company, I would think it has the same format, same kind of detail. If this shows more damage to it, then I think that raises a different discussion. It's not going to show less, it might show the same amount, and everybody's here because we doubt that it's the same amount. So, and I guess then if we haven't made even a high-level evaluation yet, is it Beta that's assigned to making that evaluation and going through the films foot by foot?
They always were.
And they have that, the two films, and they're in the process of doing that, and at the October 25th meeting, they'll be here, or they'll have a summary provided to you?
That's what our request is going to be, the same request as last time, actually. But now that Phil knows that we have this other report, and he has something to go and copy to, then we should be able to get a detailed report of if anything's changed and what.
But what I did hear, though, was that you can't verify that the company that actually ran the video down the pipe was the same one that did it for him, nor can he verify that the quality of that video is good enough to do this
But
at
the,
this point.
yes, but the intent of rescoping just a short period of time ago, the final film that went to Beta, whether they were responsible for it or not, the intent was to make a foot-by-foot comparison of that filming and the
Yes.
previous one.
Yes.
Okay.
Right,
And that's what they're doing?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Even if the whole length of roadway isn't clear enough to be compared, if we get sections of different roadways and they show deterioration, to me, that's enough to assume that they're further deteriorating.
Yeah.
I don't think every single one has to match up.
Okay.
So hopefully we can get that information and come up with what you folks are looking for, okay?
And the discussion in previous meetings was also about two particular options. One was referred to as sleeving, and the other was tear the road up and replace the pipe.
Right.
Are those still the only two options that,
We haven't got into that in any more depth yet because we don't know the issue.
okay,
All I know that if the sleeving's done, we're gonna have to get some assurances that you've heard about this sleeving, I'm sure,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There's another option too, but
All right, but we're gonna be talking about that, and we're gonna make sure, number one, we get assurances from outside professionals, and number two, make sure there's some bonding in place with longevity, so that if everybody's best guess was wrong, that the town's protected, so, and you folks are protected. At that time, it'll probably be the town, because the roads will probably be accepted. So,
I'm going to pass the mic over.
sure.
Hi, Nishant Shah at 179 Hemingway Place. A question, I guess, in relation to the past and kind of what's going on now is that, the video was reviewed previously and then was sent to Pulte. Pulte came back with an engineering solution being the sleeve. I guess I've heard a little bit now about the timeline for what needs to happen, at least with beta. What is the timeline for getting the information to Pulte, and how much time do they have to turn things around, et cetera?
I think at this stage, sir, we're just taking this a step at a time.
Okay.
Obviously, everybody wants it done as soon as possible.
Agreed. I'm on the
We
board
have a
of,
course of correction. We want to certainly make sure it's the right course.
I'm one of the board of trustee members, so obviously a lot of our folks in the neighborhood are, if no other information, they're just looking for a timeline, and we're just trying to provide them with that information.
Right. Well, from what we understand, I think we hold the bond on that roadway in excess of $800,000. And I think we were told by the folks from Pulte at last meeting, there was some type of legal action that was going on also between them and whomever. So right now, everything is sort of in limbo. So before we figure out how to best fix this, we want to find out and research and make sure we get the best practice, so they don't happen again.
Thank you.
So.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Ken Cook, 190 Warren Drive. I would just ask, is Pulte here this evening, or their engineer?
No, they're not.
Because I was told by Pulte and hopefully the town, and I spoke with Beta a couple weeks ago, and I was told that, they were hoping to work out a solution prior to this meeting.
That would be impossible.
Well,
They can't work out a solution until we know what the problem is, and we decide what they're going to present us with options, and they're going to be reviewed, and then we'll decide what the solution. They're not going to be handing us any solution.
What I meant by that is that
right.
they are supposed to be talking, according to what I heard, is that Beta's engineer is going to talk to Pulte's engineer. They're going to try and, figure out what a sound solution for both sides will be.
If that's going on, it's going on without the authority of the board.
Okay.
This is simply of getting the video done. Bob was to look at the videos, our engineers will give us the videos, and then we bring Pulte in when we have to figure out a way to rectify all this. They're coming in after.
Okay. So the only thing I would say is that, these cracks were discovered over a year ago, and the only thing that's been accomplished is that a second set of pictures have been taken, and here it is over a year ago, and we're still, and these pictures were taken about 3 weeks ago, the second set of pictures, and there's been no communication. Even the Beta engineering group doesn't know that there was a first set of pictures taken, which is, to me, that's troubling.
Well, let's not go cast any fault on anybody. We're trying to move along, and yes, they did have an engineer or two change since we've hired them, and that's unfortunate. And even if that wasn't the case, it still has been going on a long time, granted. I can feel your pain.
There's really nothing that's been accomplished. That's our concern. We have 80 residents in this neighborhood.
All right, you made your point.
Well, just
Take
hopefully...
a little criticism, but when you repeat the criticism, then we'd like to shut you off and move on to the next thing. Okay. We're here doing the best we can. What can I tell you? The best we can.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a question about the sewer lines that the residents have to take over. Right, the board, you guys are now responsible for your sewer lines. Have you guys done anything to check those?
We have not, and that was actually a question that, I guess, if there was any scoping, we had a meeting on Monday with all the residents, and there was a question, at least, that since we do own all of the sewer lines as well, that when somebody, I don't know if there's additional scoping that's going to be done, or TV work that's going to be done, but if there is, if somebody could just take a look at our pipes. I don't know how easy or not. I'm not an engineer. If that's not possible, then we certainly understand. But we also don't know the quality of those pipes, and at least most of us were not made aware when we purchased our homes that we would own those pipes in addition to the wastewater treatment plant. So,
Do you know if the same company
You gotta be,
Mr. Chairman, would you know, was it Princess Construction that put
I've-
in
I've
the
no
sewer
idea.
pipes?
I
The
think
same
it was
company
a
that
few
installed the
different companies.
drainage
I have
pipes?
no idea. Again, we're trying to move forward with this strategically so we get one thing accomplished. We had talked about the sewer pipes. We did not accept Pulte's, our transfer of easements, the last board members here, because we discovered that we'd be taking over the obligation for the sewer pipes, which are private. So that's all been worked out. We haven't accepted any roadways anyway. The last discussion I remember a while ago was, how do you go check the integrity of those, are those plastic pipes, Bob, those sewer pipes? How do we check the integrity of those pipes? And I don't think that was ever determined, not at these meetings anyway. That we're still concentrating on the main thing, the drain line. I would guess that before the drain line is ever activated and repaired, probably should know whether the sewer lines are at the same time are a problem, because if the road's gonna be dug up, everything really should be dug up at one time. That's why I see this being longer than a shorter process.
I believe the previous engineer from Beta did mention that there was a way to pressure test those sewer pipes.
So we're gonna
or
get to
something.
that when the time comes, but that's one of the things we have to figure out. The good news is we still have a bond of that high amount, so that's a help.
Thank you for taking that into consideration.
You're quite welcome. All right, so we will try to get the report that we were looking for last time, next time, and hopefully we get some answers. Mr. Cook, I feel your pain. Believe me, I feel, and work as best we can. Right.
Whatever we can do, please let us know.
You'd be assured that we'd tell you. You'd be assured, but right now it's getting to that first step. What do we need to fix these drain lines? And then we look at the rest. And the water is still an issue too.
Yeah, we have low water pressure.
Well, that probably is, it could be indicative of other things, but we just want to make sure the water lines are all in good shape, that's all. Which you-
Okay.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have a public here. I think we're all set with you, is that right?
Okay.
Thank you
That's
for
what I
your
just
help. So
wanted to
see what you, if you get any information on the tapes as far as you think you're going to be able to work something, give us a call and let us know that you're at least able to do it, okay?
Yeah, I'll
Keep us
follow up with
informed.
them.
Right, thank you. Tom, don't get too comfortable. Right up there.
Seats warm for you.
8 o'clock, it's, right. All right,
You want them in over here?
yeah.
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 Seats warm for you.
Do we have the folks here from Sherwood Drive?
There's a whole bunch of people out there.
Do we have the Sherwood Drive folks here?
Yep, they're coming in.
Yep, yep.
Take so much criticism.
Well, you were very controlled, so that's good. Kevin.
How you been,
why don't we
Tom?
crack these
Good to
windows?
see you.
I've been
well,
and yourself.
Very good, thank you.
A little relief, so
There's not much air coming, but whatever it is, we'll take it.
a little bit helps.
Betsy, do you have this plan up there? We'll just have to make it a little bigger so I can see it. All right.
Did they do anything right?
It's a tough site, though. It's compact.
Did you copy of Tom's report?
That's extra.
Oh, here it is, right here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Forgot what I said.
I printed one at home, so.
Wait for Greg to come back or go ahead and get started? Got it.
All right, folks, we're getting going.
Notice is hereby given that in accordance with Mass GL Section 40A and the Norfolk Zoning Bylaws Section F11, a public hearing will be held on Wednesday, September 27th, 2017 at 8 p.m. in room 124 at the Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Massachusetts, relative to a site plan application for the property located at 6 Sherwood Drive in Norfolk, Mass. Assessors Map 19, Block 72, Lot 46. The applicant, Brad Murphy of Walpole, Massachusetts, is proposing to construct a landscape services building with associated parking, utilities, and outdoor storage. The property is located in the off-highway C1 zoning district. The plan and application are available for public inspection in the office of the Norfolk Planning Board during regular office hours.
Betsy, did the applicant have a chance to get a copy of the review comments? I know that they did. I'm sure you haven't had too much time to look at them, but briefly. Okay. All right, so why don't you guys,
Good evening, Brian Gillis from Dunn McKenzie here with the applicant tonight, Brad Murphy, and Jimmy Neva from Dunn McKenzie. As stated in the opening comments, Brad is proposing a 4,000 square foot steel building over on 6 Sherwood Drive, right near David Road also. This site was originally approved 07 or 08 under Petrucci Construction. Pretty much the same identical design, same building, lot layout, same use, everything. Brad's looking to purchase that and develop the site pretty much identical to what was previously approved. Site's currently wooded, slopes easterly down towards the end of Sherwood Drive, fully wooded right now, moderate slope. Betsy, if you don't mind going to the next sheet. Underground drainage, we're proposing infiltration beneath the paved parking area, 4,000 square foot building with 5 bays. It will also have some associated office space inside, pretty small. Septic system underground, out front, some Caltech chambers. Retaining walls on the westerly and easterly side of the property, just because we have the slope. We're proposing 1,000 square feet of outdoor storage area. To the rear of the site, that would be where the applicant can dump mulch and then scoop from the pile and load his truck if needed. Septic will flow out to a septic tank, to a pump chamber, pump out front to the leaching field. We do have numerous setbacks here to meet, just because adjacent wells and adjacent septic systems on the abutting sites. The proposed use is similar to other sites within this area, and we are also working on a design almost identical to this to the site adjacent just to the back side of this, but it wasn't not filed.
Where's the well on your site?
The proposed well is right here at the edge.
so you're gonna have a metal building, keep materials and equipment inside, or just equipment, or?
It'll be, Brad, it'll be vehicles and
How big is
equipment.
the building, the footprint?
4,000 square feet.
One floor?
It's going to have a mezzanine for offices.
Okay, and you're gonna be storing landscaping
Basic
supplies?
landscaping equipment, yes. Yeah.
And where are the storage area gonna be? Is that designated on the plan?
Excuse me, John. If this conversation is going to continue, would you use the mic, please? Not for us, but for folks at home.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to use that for landscape equipment, lawn care equipment, et cetera, for interior.
And where is the materials, mulch and loam, things like that, gonna be stored?
On the bin to the westerly side of the property.
Right here. That's 1,000 square feet of outdoor storage.
Is it gonna be in a bin?
Yeah, it's going to be in the bin.
It's not gonna be on the ground?
No, it's going to be in a wall block bin.
But it's not gonna have a bottom, it's gonna have a ground to the bottom, correct?
It's going to be asphalt.
Oh, it is? It's
Yes.
gonna be asphalt.
Asphalt. Right now, we just have proposed damp gravel. But for drainage calcs, we modeled it as being pervious.
I think it's kind of important, we'll get to our consultant, but I think we're near the well and you've got these materials that are gonna possibly leach. The asphalt probably is gonna be a good idea, but anyway, go ahead.
Then we're right in the lot coverage calculation.
And then you're what?
We're right in that lot coverage calculation. Sorry. If we do pave this, I think it brings us right up to exceeding the proposed lot coverage.
Brings you over the
Which,
coverage.
yep.
Okay, but
I think that's pretty much it for presentation. I was just going to open it up to questions. I know there was a bunch of review comments.
right, we had a letter from our planner, our peer review person, and also the Board of Health agent. You guys haven't applied for septic yet, right?
No, we have not.
You have a copy of the Board of Health agent's letter? All right, could you make sure they get a copy?
Yep,
Betsy?
of course.
You might want to look at that, and I would guess maybe start that whole process, because I think there's a lot of barriers you have to work within to get a septic system in there that meets zoning and code, okay?
It was approved back in '08. We needed to have the septic system was approved.
Right, all right, but it wasn't, that's gone by and not approved now.
Yeah, we're going to refile.
All right, so I'm just basing what I got on the report I read from the Board of Health agent. So I would suggest you at least make contact, probably as you're working with the planning board, just to see if you can figure out his concerns and work around them, because his concerns may affect the, Tom, his concerns may affect the actual layout and design of your whole project. So I think to do this simultaneously would be a big help for you. So you're not getting through with us and then going to have to regroup and change the plan because of the septic requirements, okay? All right.
We did not receive the Board of Health comments
Right,
at all.
right. I just got it this afternoon, so we're going to send that off to you,
I did
okay?
forward it to you.
No, I got Tom Kingston.
Right. Okay, first I'm going to have Gino Carlucci, our planner, just go over his comments that pertain to the zoning. Okay?
Okay, speaking of outdoor storage, while it is 1,000 square feet, it does not require a special permit. However, the regulations require a 6-foot-high fence to screen it. A 4-foot fence is proposed, though it also is within that 8-foot retaining wall. But anyway, just to note that. There's no, they have a note that they're not planning to store more than 3 vehicles, so that's in compliance. The parking shows 14 spaces plus 1 handicap space, which appears to comply with the requirement based on the square footage of the building. Speaking of the lot coverage, they had a calculation showing the pavement area and the landscape area adding up to 59%, where the maximum allowed is 60%. But those two figures did not add up to the total lot area of 30,000, or rather, I think it was 31,000. But anyway, I'm thinking that those areas may not count the area of the retaining wall, which may put it over the 60%, since that's
Yeah,
impervious surface.
we included the top of the retaining wall as being impervious. It's actually the block we're speccing, you actually fill over the block and you just leave like a little reveal. But we just still assumed it being all impervious. But so if you're like comparing the landscaped area, like the little strip to the east between the face of the retaining wall and the property line, didn't count that into the landscape areas. But we can clarify that or break that down
Yeah,
better
just
so you can
so it
understand.
adds up to the total square footage, so it's clear.
And deal with the 1,000 square foot of asphalt as well, right?
If you guys are asking us to pave that area, yes.
Well, as John pointed out, it's right adjacent to the well. Couldn't be any closer if you were touching.
Okay, they have an erosion, sediment, and sedimentation and dust control plan. And I just suggested that there should be a plan for blocking the entrance during times of no construction, just in case there's a big storm during a weekend or when no work is being done. The comment number 13, the driveway and parking lot construction standards appear to comply with the rules and regulations, with the exception of Cape Cod berm for the parking lot, which is, while that doesn't comply with the standards, they could ask for a waiver. All the other facilities in this area have Cape Cod berm around the parking lot, pretty much. And then they have a number of waivers, waiver requests for traffic studies, impact studies. They actually do have the waiver request for the Cape Cod berm. Sidewalk requirement, there are no other sidewalks on the street. The bigger one probably is the subsurface drainage system to be allowed to be closer to the lot line than 25 feet and 25 feet from the slab on grade building. And that's the end of my comments.
Have you guys done soil testing?
Yes, we have. Yep. Soil, test pit observations and permeability testing.
How are you gonna handle those walls that are 8 feet?
The 8-foot walls, they'll be designed by a structural engineer.
I understand you're gonna have a fence on top of it?
Yep, correct, yeah.
And does-
Per building code, we need to.
Does a percent of safety feature based on where they are on the lot to abutters?
Well, based on what they come up with the design, we'll have to evaluate that.
Normally, we have an 8-foot wall terrace, so you've got 2 4-foot walls, so
Yep.
they comply, but it looks like you folks are gonna have a tough time with lot coverage, so that may not be an alternative, so. I
These
think
are-
in the past, when we let walls be higher than 4 feet, as long as they're safe, with the fencing, et cetera, so.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be designed and stamped by a structural engineer. We're using the lot wider blocks here because we don't have much room to terrace anything.
Are the walls gonna be holding back grade?
Correct, yes.
So on the other side, you'll have the higher grade with the fence.
Yep. Yeah, we need a fence per building code.
Okay, all right, now I understand. Thank you. Tom, let's go to you next. I think what I'd like to do at this stage, because they have a lot of things to address, can you go into each section and go over the main points that you think have to be addressed, okay?
Sure.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Tom Houston with PSC, peer reviewer on this project.
Copies there if you want them. You got them?
The engineer of record has properly designed the proposed project. It generally complies with local and state requirements and with standard engineering practice. We do, however, have a number of comments that we believe should be resolved prior to decision by the board, and I'd like to just touch on some of the more important ones. Comment number 7, this is a contractor's headquarters in the C1C off-highway zoning district, which is a use permitted by special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So any action by the planning board should be contingent upon obtaining the required special permit for use. Comment number 9, roof water should be separately recharged in a separate facility. There's just one currently. Our comments 12 and 13, and these echo Mr. Carlucci's comments. A 25-foot separation is required from the building and property line, and a 100-foot separation from the source of water supply, the on-site well. The current facility doesn't meet any of those setbacks. Admittedly, it's a very tough site. I empathize with the engineer, but does not meet the current setback requirements. Comment number 14 is probably one of the more important in our report. The applicant established the hydraulic conductivity through on-site testing. They did 2 tests, and they took the lower of the 2 values, which is 1.38 inches per hour, and that's fine. But the DEP Stormwater Handbook, like many of DEP's protocols, is quite conservative. They require that if you establish the hydraulic conductivity through on-site testing, you can only use 50% of the observed value, which would mean that the design of the infiltration facility, the time to empty, etc., all of that would be significantly underdesigned based upon the hydraulic conductivity that you're required to use, which is only 0.69 inches per hour. It may be possible either to redesign that or to take some supplemental soil tests and perhaps design the facility using the Rawls rates. But that's an open question and measurably impacts the design of the site. The bottom of the infiltration facility is supposed to be 2 feet above seasonal high groundwater. Based upon the groundwater observation in test hole number 5, the bottom of the underground infiltration system is only 1.5 feet above the seasonal high groundwater. The mounding analysis looks like it needs to be revised. I have a feeling it's presenting maybe more conservative an analysis than actually will occur. But if you take the analysis literally, the system fails. The issue is that hydraulic conductivity, which is how quickly the water infiltrates into the soil, it's much more rapid vertically than horizontally. So if the mound underneath the infiltration facility rises to the point where it contacts the bottom of the system, you can't get the design rate of infiltration, so the system will back up. What happens here, it not only hits the bottom of the facility, but it rises up into it, which means you're also losing volume within the facility. All of that seems to be maybe higher than a mound of this nature should actually rise, which is strange because I think the horizontal hydraulic conductivity is substantially overstated. So it looks like that model may need to be just recalibrated, and simply it's a calibration issue and not an actual failure issue. We're looking for formal, comment 20, we're looking for formal construction period, pollution prevention and erosion control and sedimentation plan. Comment 21, we're looking for a formal post-construction operation and maintenance plan. Comment 22, the storm drains, at least in the street, are supposed to be 12-inch minimum RCP pipe. They're using an 8-inch HDPE pipe. I realize it's a private street, but I would suggest consulting with the Department of Public Works to find out their view about the use of HDPE pipe in the street. The HydroCAD calculations. The HydroCAD calculations show that the post-development rate of both the peak rate of runoff and the volume of runoff are less than the pre-development volume and peak rate, which is proper. The way that was done, they used a link, which is simply an analytical tool which allows you to add hydrographs. They used a link to add the 2 off-site hydrographs. One is an overland flow situation, the other is the discharge from the underground infiltration facility. So although the total discharge complies, the issue is that the discharge from the underground infiltration facility goes into the street storm drain system. And currently there is no discharge to the street storm drain system. So if this were a public street, they would have to analyze the use to capacity ratio and figure out if there was capacity in the street system. Even though it's a private street, we're recommending that that same analysis be done here, because like under the 25-year storm, the peak rate of flow is around 1 CFS, which is enough to be concerned about its impact on the peak rate and volume capacity of that system. Comment 25, the underground infiltration systems are prone to failure from sedimentation. We're looking for a detailed plan during construction. how the applicant can bulkhead off that system and not use it to accept runoff until the site is completely stabilized. Comment 27, the maximum slope per the board's rules and regulations are a 3-to-1 slope. Behind the retaining wall that's on the west side of the site, there's a 1-to-1 slope there, so one issue is non-compliance with the rules and regulations. The other is, it's kind of an engineering rule of thumb. If you have a slope that's steeper than 2-to-1, you're supposed to submit a geotechnical analysis to establish slope stability. So that slope is an issue from a stability and regulatory point of view. Also, the grading appears to extend off the site. So in comment 28, we suggest that both temporary and permanent grading easements are required. Comment number 30, the snow storage location is very near the exterior storage facility right next to the well. So we're suggesting that the snow storage area be moved to the point where it's more than 100 feet distant from the well. Comment 31 relates to the outdoor storage area. We're concerned about its proximity to the wellhead, also whether or not the surface is paved. Whether or not it's a significant problem, of course, depends on what is stored there. So we're asking for a list of what is stored there, and also for, as part of the operation and maintenance plan, when that's submitted, we're asking for a spill control protocol to be submitted. Our comment 48 is also pretty significant. We just did an analysis of a ready rock wall system for another roadway project we were doing. So the issue is, this relates only to the ready rock well that's on the east side of the site, because it has a vehicular guardrail on the top. The problem with a vehicular guardrail, if it's struck by a vehicle, it imparts a horizontal impact loading on the well, and on the wall rather. And the Ready Rock design manual requires that there be a 3-foot separation between the back of the posts of the guardrail and the back face of the wall. Essentially, and again, I'm looking at a 20 scale drawing, but there appears to be no separation between the back posts of the guardrail and the wall. So that would have to be moved out 3 feet to get the separation. Also, the thickness of the guardrail, depending on which one you use, is somewhere between 1 foot and 1.5 feet. So the whole edge of pavement is probably going to have to move over to the west by about 4.5 feet. And this site is so very tight that that's going to have a measurable impact on the site. So I think in this instance, rather than defer the design of the wall, I think we need a final design of the wall as part of the site plan approval, or else you're not going to know whether the site plan you're approving is feasible or not. Just a couple of more things. Comment 52, we're worried about the potential breakout from the abutting septic system on Lot 4. It's located above and pretty close to the wall that's on the west side of the site. Comment 54, requirements for a tight tank should be noted if there are any floor drains inside the building. Comment 55, we're looking for a complete list of hazardous materials that are stored on the site, as well as the protocols for their storage and use. That's generated both by the fact that there's a discharge to the drain system in the street, and also by virtue of the fact there's a water supply well on the site. And finally, comment 56, we're asking that the post-construction operation maintenance plan include a spill containment protocol should any of the hazardous materials be inadvertently spilled anywhere on the site. So, Mr. Chairman, those are our comments. We had a tight turnaround on this, so I apologize for the late delivery, but we look forward to working with the engineer to resolve the comments.
Thanks, Tom. So you folks have a good time to digest all this, and it seems like your main task is going to be to get the building size and where everything is going and keep it in the footprint and the lot coverage that you're allowed. It seems like that's gonna be the main thing you've got to back into. Unfortunately, by the materials you may be storing, and considering this is an area with wells, you've got a whole bunch of extra issues here.
Yep. We're confident we can go back to the drawing table, fine-tune some things, provide a response
Super.
to satisfy you guys.
Any questions, Walter, any questions? No? At this stage, you guys have any questions?
Just what is there now?
Is it just
Nothing there,
raw
just
land?
woods. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Is anybody in the audience here for this filing? All right, that,
Just one more. The two businesses that are adjacent, what are they?
A trucking shop to the west. To the east, is that vacant?
No, I think it has a light and bolt on electrical company, maybe.
Used to be electrical, but I thought when I drove by a while ago it was abandoned. Maybe I'm wrong.
I've actually seen a truck there, so
Did ya?
it's being used to some
Ah.
extent, but not heavily.
did you say that you also own the abutting lot behind it?
No, we were actually doing a site plan for another applicant right behind there.
Okay, very good.
Almost for the identical, similar building.
Okay, great. All right, so Betsy, what's the next time we have it?
7:30 on the 25th?
7:30? We have a motion to continue this. Is that going to give you enough time to make some headway into this?
Yeah, I think so.
A month?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we'll look for continuance, Walter, or?
Yeah, I move to continue the application. Is that what we're doing? This
Site plan
application?
review.
Application for site plan review to 7:30 on October 25th for 6 Sherwood Drive.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, we'll see you then. Thank you.
All right.
Next, we have a discussion with Lawrence Street Bridge Roadway. Do we have the police and fire chief out there?
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
See you. I think it was July, I know.
A little bit.
Bob,
All the brass.
is it cooler outside than it is in here? In the hallway? Is it cooler? Can we prop the doors?
Yeah.
Thank you.
God bless him.
We have a developer here on this one. All right. Betsy, do you have that plan to go up on the board? I do. Good.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks, for coming. The purpose that we talked about is as you know, we have 2 subdivisions proposed on Lawrence Street from Park Street up around to Brett Farm Road. And even though the planning board does not have any final say in the overall comprehensive permit, we do offer input on things that pertain to us, such as the roadway. So I have in the past been out there with the fire chief, Cole, and I've talked with the police chief, and I've talked with the DPW, and I would just ask them, we brought them in, and we're going to try to set a bar on what we think is required in that area to provide safety, so that if these projects do get built out, what is the level of infrastructure changes that we need to make this all work? That's why we're here. And whatever we come up with in comments, we'll refer it over to the ZBA, and hopefully they take our comments under advisement. Just so you folks know, this is not about gravel removal. It's not about density. Fortunately, it's not our board, it's the ZBA. So I'd like to confine all of the comments just to the safety of the project. First, I have up distinguished fire chief, he and I were, you, he and I, why don't you sit in front of me? So, Cold and I were out at the Lawrence Street Bridge a week or so ago. We have some pictures that Cole had taken previously. We have some dimensions, and we just observed the traffic coming down. And I think that this is not going to be any news to the people that live there and use that road frequently. But obviously, the dimensions right now are far from adequate, as far as I think everybody agrees. Right now, that bridge is 20 feet wide. The roadway is around 20 feet. It goes to 19 feet. The problem as you go off the bridge going towards Eagle Drive is that the side of the asphalt is compromised. So you've got an underwash coming, so the pavement has a lip under it, so there's no tolerance for mistake. If somebody goes off to the edge, that you're probably in the water. So, Cole, why don't you just go over our conversation, what you discovered down there, explain the pictures that you have there, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly enjoyed tonight's...
There's some punch, too.
I certainly reserved that for the end of the presentation. I want to thank you very much for the invitation. It was an opportunity tonight to watch the Yankees hopefully win and cut another game off the Red Sox division lead at this point. Lawrence Street obviously is going to be an issue moving forward. And one of the things in talking with John as the chairman was that I really don't want to be involved in a safe or unsafe situation. And I related to him and the board that I'd be more than happy to come here tonight and talk to people and address these issues and talk about just from a standpoint of the empirical data that was there. Knowing that this might happen, started doing some photography on the site a few weeks ago before John had come in contact. And this is just an overall presentation, just taking a look. I mean, we're going north on Lawrence at this point with a DPW dump truck. And Engine 2 is our primary response vehicle to all incidents in the town of Norfolk, so you get some orientation. Beep. As a view north and towards Cranberry Meadow, you get an idea again. We're just on the other side of the bridge. You get the idea of how this looks when you have the two vehicles there. Beep. Again, another view. We're now looking south towards Park Street. And if we can beep, go to the next slide. So some of the things to keep in mind. The vehicles that you're seeing do have a situation in the middle of the screen. You'll see that the mirrors are very close, and if the photographer who's taking the shots did a better job, you'd see that the mirrors would actually hit as the vehicles passed at this point. On the left-hand side of the photograph, a little fuzzy in this presentation, but Engine 2 is basically off the pavement here a little bit, probably by about 4 or 5 inches. It's a passenger side tire. The DPW dump truck in the lower right-hand side of the photograph. I'm sorry, I'm standing.
No, you're good.
You can see that truck has moved inward a little bit towards the yellow line, and there's some space there. Beep. So, took some random road width measurements. Say that 3 times fast. And this was done with a walker. There isn't a scientific value. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I am not an engineer. I turned that over to my good friend Rick. But the general locations that you have here, if you look down, John had mentioned it's basically 20 feet. The small area there north of the bridge between the utility poles is about just over 19 feet going in that direction. If you look at the vehicles that we had there and you measure these vehicles from each side, the overall width, the dump truck is 112 inches mirror to mirror. The fire engine's 121 inches. And my math comes up to 133 inches, which equals that small area that we're dealing with. So you get a little bit of an orientation with a piece of fire apparatus. The one thing that I would point out, just so that there isn't any confusion, the fire department is kind of like the Marines. We adapt and overcome. I cannot equivocally state that we've never had, in the 13 years I've been here, had an incident where we've not been able to reach an emergency, either with our ambulance and the paramedics or the fire apparatus. People are generally very good about getting out of our way. And if not, we can always nudge them along. But I just wanted to make that as a matter of record as well. Beep. John had mentioned that the sides of the road surface in the area which I guess is referred to more as the causeway. This would be north of the bridge heading towards Cranberry Meadow. Some of that area has been undermined over the years, and you get an idea that some of the deterioration has taken place just from general erosion, use, and so forth. Beep. Just want to give you a clear picture of what the fire department has done in the Lawrence Street area since 2006. Looking at pretty close to an 11-year period, and we broke all the incidents down by the street and the type of incidents. Motor vehicle accidents over that period, 8 of them on Lawrence Street. I can tell you that we've had 2 that have gone off the road that I've been at. Both of those involve situations, and we'll call them, refer to them as impaired operators, taking place well after midnight. You can do the rest of the supposition there. Medical calls, Lawrence Street, something that we go up there periodically for, but there's not a lot of call volume when you look at this over the period of just about 11 years. We've had one, since I've been here, we've had one serious fire on Lawrence Street, the house up between Brett's and Cranberry Meadow. And other than that, we deal with the nuisance situations that unfortunately come in any area where it's vacant, and that would be the Placido property. The Placido development's been very good working with us, and I'm sure Chief Stone would indicate the same, of trying to limit the people who are on that site, and it's very difficult. We've had one very serious medical that occurred out there in a dirt bike accident last summer, but it's a very difficult site. Certainly development out there from our perspective, which is very limited and narrow-minded as you look at this, would certainly be helpful. But once again, the message from the fire department is we can get to where we need to go. You have a presentation here that shows what some of the constraints are that we would deal with. But we would get to you if you're on Lawrence, Brett's, Cranberry Meadow, Eagle Drive, and you're also in an area which is known as an automatic response for Franklin. They come in from their end, depending on the type of call, with an engine or a ladder company. Thank you.
Question. So the character of this road is going to be changing. So the vehicle trips that are going from 800 to perhaps 4,000 per week, and of course, I don't think there's been much construction up in that section of town ever since I've been in town for 16 years or so. But considering the new activity going on this road and the conditions, and assuming that various truck drivers are not going to cross that bridge, what were you going, a mile an hour as they passed, perhaps?
They're standing alone.
All right, they're standing. So what, in your estimation, to provide proper clearance with people going a normal rate of speed, that 20-foot wide area, what do you think it should be to provide a normal passing of vehicles on that roadway?
I don't want to sidestep the issue, but I think, as I indicated earlier, that would be a question that would be handled by someone from an engineering standpoint. Again, we'll get through best we can, but I don't think I'm in a position where I could say, a super highway situation or a country path is which end of that extreme we're looking for. I think that's higher authority, much higher than mine.
Is it fair to say it's wider than it is today?
You lost me there, Walter.
Well, in response to John's question, is it fair to say that what we might be looking for is something that's wider than it exists today on the road width?
Yeah, I think that's quite obvious. Sure.
Fair enough.
Fair enough, yeah.
You guys, any questions for Cole?
No.
Anybody in the audience have questions for Cole?
I'm disappointed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're quite welcome.
Don't forget your punch.
Chief Stone. We have on file a record from Chief Stone on his observations from the roadway. Do you have that, Betsy?
Well, she's looking for that. In August, I sent something up to the planning board regarding Lawrence Street. Clearly, the same as Cole says, our vehicles, when we activate our blue lights and sirens, people are going to pull over. So we're probably not going to face, they're going to pull over to the side of the road as far over as they can. It is a fairly narrow road, 18 to 20 feet, 21 feet at the most, probably. I'll answer John's question now. Yes, I'd like it to be wider. I'd like it to be as wide as possible. And I'd like the bridge to be strong enough to support traffic that goes over there today, never mind later on in the project. So my concerns on this bridge, it's a 1950 narrow, very narrow bridge, 1915 very narrow bridge. The distressed roadway edges could be a problem for today's traffic, never mind as we motivate through the project. There's going to be increased truck traffic during the work period, and then post work when the development is complete. There'll be a lot more traffic coming down Lawrence to Park to Main. Think about how many vehicle trips an average family will use those streets going to the center for school, for sports activities, for anything that might be occurring in town, going to church. I don't care what it is in the afternoon, Girl Scouts, brownies, anything. All those vehicle trips are going to add traffic to the roads now. One of my concerns is that we have access to that area right from the beginning to the end. If for some reason it was blocked and we had to go all the way around and we had to go through City Mills, up Chestnut Street, then down Mill to get there, it's a longer route for us. And as Cole just showed you, over a period of time, the most concerning time for us is fires and medicals. So there were a large number of those, the larger number of those was those for that period of time. So we want to make sure we are able to get there. There are some other ones that are less concerning, like maybe wires down or something, but things can happen with those too. So I had asked in that letter or the note that I had sent up to the planning board for increased traffic signage going all the way down to Park and Main, maybe even up Park towards 140, trying to let people know how, the speeds that they're traveling, so we get them to slow down. They have them out there. The technology is great. You can see them. We actually bought one, and right now you can see it on Union Street. So when you drive around, you have to be cognizant of the neighborhoods and other people that live there while you're making your trip to the town center or the center of a hub of activity. Sidewalks. It's going to be a key. If you're going to have 200 or so homes, plus maybe some other homes in the area, it's going to be a lot of people who are going to be on the road. I don't care if they're jogging, walking, taking the dog for a walk. And then add to that the vehicle trips, there'll be a lot of people using the road, whether it be pedestrian or motor vehicles. So there's a lot of things that are coming to play that we'd be looking for. Roadway width is certainly one of them. A much better bridge, and whoever responsibility that is, it's got to happen. And water to the development.
Does the normal secondary roadway width in town is 24 feet? And we have that in a lot of areas where there is construction going on, a decent amount. Would 24 feet standard roadside accommodate the future activity in this area here? Or would you still be passing that bridge carefully?
Well, right now I'll be passing that bridge carefully anyways.
At 24 feet?
Well, right, it's not 24 feet.
No, if it were widened to 24 feet.
It would be better, but
would that-
sidewalk capability.
So 24 feet with a sidewalk?
Yeah. I mean, that's what the long-term plan, being on the sidewalk committee for many years and trying to get the sidewalks throughout town,
Right.
long-term plan is to have sidewalks so people can walk.
And ideally, should the sidewalk go from Park Street all the way up to this proposed subdivision's back entrance, which is, I think, across from Brett Farm Road?
Right.
So that would take care of all the existing neighborhood along with the new development?
Yes.
Because we have a project now that was in here earlier proposing 30 houses, and most subdivisions come in asking for one side to be wavered for sidewalk. I think he may have been in the range of 2,000 feet or so. Years ago, the planning board used to make folks put money into a fund based on the cost of that sidewalk they were waiving for sidewalks in other part of town. But it seems like in this place, perhaps that sidewalk, the second sidewalk in the new subdivision, would be better served. It was going maybe from the first entrance of the new subdivision to the second, which is probably around a couple thousand feet.
Yeah.
Yes, I would, anytime you can add a sidewalk to an area that's going to be congested with pedestrians at some point, and with motor vehicle traffic added to it, yeah, you want to be have that capability.
You guys got any questions for the chief?
The bridge is 102 years old, 1915, is that how I hear you? Wow. That's,
Go up and see, you can see that on the bridge. It's
that's older than I am.
penciled in.
Bob, does the Department of Public Works have any issues when they're working up there, plowing, sanding? Do you have any issues with your truck? Because I know as you go up towards Cranberry Heights, there's a sight distance issue in my eye because the curve coming out of Cranberry Meadows, it seems to be a constrained sight view. Do you guys have any issues with the plows when you're up there?
No, sometimes the sanding is difficult up there because of the grades turning into Eagle and so forth, but one of the causeway itself lends for great sight distance, and it's probably the success that people have been experiencing through the years because they're considerate of one another. They just slow down and let the other guy pass and so forth, but no, we salt and we sand, and when we plow snow, it either goes into the water or it stills, and and it makes an embankment, which could narrow a road. Another consideration in this road for traffic in the future is that you might want some traffic restraint.
It's
like
kind of
guardrail.
interesting when the fire chief and I were up there. We were up there for perhaps, I don't know, maybe an hour or so, with no traffic going in a different direction. As cars would come forward from Brett Farm Road towards Park Street, the vast majority traveled by themselves, crossing the double line. So it's almost like the people that travel there regularly know that that lane that's on their side is so altered. They cover their edge and they cross and they go over the double line just to make sure they're away from that pavement defect, which said a lot to me because as it is now, just a car driving by itself, and as I said, the majority cross over the median strip. So.
With water being on either side, because there's a bridge, is there a conservation issue with widening that area and rebuilding a bridge?
Yeah, there is. To widen that area, because you make a 24-foot road, you still need a couple of feet after the pavement to have a gravel base, because you can't build the road right to the water, so you'd be talking, if that was done, to do that, which is why a lot of projects in the past never ended up happening, besides, of course, for the water. That would recall filling in some of the pond by putting some type of retaining wall in the pond, filling it to make the road wider. And the thoughts we had with some conversations, which is actually done down the Cape and a few other spots, is when the retaining wall is put in, they have a bracket system that attaches to the retaining wall. So what you have is a boardwalk sidewalk that cantilevers over the pond. So for the kids now that are fishing and everything, you're able to use that as a sidewalk to be off the street, and then just to drop your line in there and not be bothered by the traffic. So I think if it was ever brought forward that they were going to widen that road and fill in that area, part of that whole thing, it would be much simpler to put a bracket system and a boardwalk cantilevering over the pond than to fill in 7 more feet of the pond. And probably from conservation's perspective, that probably would be required. So widening it is a big step.
And from the edge of the pavement to the retaining wall is, well, how many feet roughly?
Probably 3 or 4 feet.
4 feet. So, yeah, so the inner edge of the sidewalk is 3 or 4 feet from the pavement. Yeah, so it's not like it's right up against it with a fence required or anything like that. You've got enough separation for safety reasons.
Just kissing at it, it looked like that you probably have to fill in probably at the narrowest part of the pond, probably 8 feet.
Yeah, okay.
So, just to make the 24-foot roadway and have the gravel base on either side as
Yeah.
an extra protection.
Yeah.
So, and I think that we've had some meetings over the past, there were a few of us with the developer, and I see he's joined us here for our little talk. I think that at the ZBA meeting, he gave us some proposals regarding the safety of that roadway. So I think you folks, when you show up at that meeting, be interested to hear what he has to say. And of course, the main component of that is who is going to pay for it and how. So I think that our group had a little bit of consensus of what's proposed to be done. So hopefully that follows through and you folks hear it at the next ZBA meeting. Anybody else in the audience have any questions? Jeremy, for the chief or the DPW, anybody? You speak now. Just let us know your name, take a microphone, and
Betsy, take the one from Bob.
Brian Cahaley, 11 Cranberry Meadow Road. Just wanted to, I thought the presentation from the fire chief was excellent, by the way. The school buses, I don't know, I would assume are probably about the same width as one of those trucks there that you're referring to, because I live on Cranberry Meadow. My kids' school buses come over that bridge. They go back and forth, side to side, so I'm assuming school buses side to side are going to equal pretty much the same width as that analysis that the chief did there.
did
I'd
you
be safe
take
to
those
assume that.
measurements, Cole? Is the Mack truck you used the same width as a school bus?
It's hard to say. The day that we were up there performing the...
Oh, sorry, but
There you go.
Sorry, the day we were up there performing the test, we'd made arrangements with Holmes to bring a bus down. Unfortunately, we ended up with several calls that came in the same time, so we never were able to reschedule that. I couldn't tell you definitively, perhaps.
Yeah.
Best possible guess.
Just a quick request. Mike Judici, Eagle Drive. I just want to thank the chiefs again for showing up, and this is very instructive. A lot of us have been very concerned about the safety of this road in light of the proposed development and developments now that are going in. I would just love to request, and I'll beg if I need to, that the chiefs show up at the next ZBA meeting on October 11th at the King Philip Middle School at 7 o'clock to present the same information, because I think the ZBA needs to see this. We've been trying to tell them what a dangerous situation this is and how narrow that road is, but these pictures certainly speak 1,000 words, so if that's at all possible, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
I think if the Yankees aren't playing that night, he'll probably...
We'll know.
They'll be out of it by then.
We'll know next Tuesday.
All right, if that is it, thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate it, and hopefully this follows up at the next ZBA meeting. All right. John Lawrence. See John here, new. Thank you, guys.
That's it. You're off.
Thank you.
Bob.
He is, I don't see him. All right, since I do not see if he's outside. Oh, here he is. You're on.
Forget how to start this now. We're gonna get the mic.
You need the mic.
John Robbins, born and raised in Norfolk. Just basically want to talk to you about a potential road for a lot that was brought up. I think Walter was here previous to this, on this one. And maybe Gino. I think Gino was here. John was here, but he was not
That was at the end of...
on the board at the time.
Michelle was here, but she's not here tonight, but she was...
This is one, believe it or not, we're proposing, it's a one lot. It's a road for one lot. And which I'm gonna show you. I just brought small plans. Can I pass them out there?
Sure. Sure.
Thank you.
The lot in question is 24.
Yep, thanks, John.
Shore Drive.
Everything you see up here now, all the blue X's are built on homes, lots that have houses on them. I should have probably put them on the one that's in circled in purple there too. Those are two homes that are on the corner. They're on Lakeshore Drive. They face Lakeshore Drive. This particular lot is up off of MacArthur Ave, and MacArthur Ave was never approved, never developed. Now, going way back whenever, you know, all these other, I should probably give you a cut of these too. This is what this whole subdivision looked like back in 1945 when it was approved.
Thank you.
So, I mean, there was a potential for a lot more homes to be built up here. Now, over the years, the people have pieced the lots together and built on them. What I'm trying to find out from the board is if they would allow something that is safe and adequate for this site, and maybe for one lot. And if you notice, there's no other pieces of land up there that can be built on, other than, let's see. What doesn't it show up here? Oh yeah, lot 20. If you see lot 20 at the end of Hunter Ave,
Yep.
that's a potential, but it's very, very steep to the lake. So what I'm trying to find out is if the board would consider a small road to be put in for this one lot that is, it's an acre and a quarter lot. And it does conform to zoning up there. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a street frontage.
All right, so, because you had 3 or 4 meetings on this, so let me just cut to the chase, John. Just so you guys know, this is and Gino, when I misspeak, please tell me. This is a paper road, they call it, plotted land, and when Ray was here, the research was done that said that this could be an accepted right-of-way as long as it was provided with safe and adequate access from the street. Is that correct?
Yes, it could.
All right.
Yes, I would say
And I
so.
remember when Ray gave the case study, the persons that are using this plotted road now have to maintain their same rights. So if somebody is going off this gravel path right now, as we talked about, like the man on the corner, the road that's built has to give this man the same egress that he's enjoyed from day one. That was the guy that was showing up at all the public hearings for you. So I think that the best way it's kind of got a funny angle here, John, and I think you can eliminate, well, I'm not sure. What you have to do to at least get us started, you have to have some engineering done, and the engineering that's done has to just basically justify that you're providing a town road that is able to be accepted, that provides safe access to your lot. Am I saying that right, Gino?
Yes, and wasn't there a similar small subdivision of like 2 lots or something
Off of
Nearby,
Priscilla.
off of Priscilla, yeah.
Just approved that.
Yeah, there was.
I know that this lot here has a steep grade, so he's gonna have to get the grade to conform in with our zoning regulations, but I think that, looking at it when I walked it, it looks like it may be able to be done with some type of retaining wall, and there would have to be some type of a temporary turnaround unless the board allows something different for fire access. So I think your next step, and then I'll open up to questions from the rest of the folks here, I think your first step is to just get something on a plan that gives us dimension of the proposed road, the grade of the proposed road, the access for your lot, showing frontage on that road, and the access for the neighbor here that is using it now.
There it is.
I think that would be a,
Well, it's going to be, well, the thing is, I just want to make sure the board is open to a possibility of this.
you just got the rule.
Yeah.
You just got the law. So no one's gonna say it's definitely can be done. You've got to provide the engineering that meets the criteria to get it accepted.
All right, this was, and it's no good now, but it was approved back in 1992.
Right, then save it. It doesn't matter.
Oh, I know, but I figured but would something like this be a possibility for the board?
An engineered plan like that? Yes.
Sure, absolutely.
Yes.
I'm not talking an extreme road like this, because we're only talking one lot, but.
Exactly. So that's your job to decide how wide it's gonna be, the egress. Don't forget, if you end this road at the lot that you're looking at, there's still a road that goes all the way down to Hollow. So in theory, anybody else owning land here can also redevelop that road to get themselves access. So it's not like you're gonna do a road to cover your lot and you're all set. This platted road goes all the way up to Hollow Ave, which means that all of the, and granted, it may not be feasible, but still, someone has the right to adjoin these lots and to connect up and continue on with your road.
No, but what I'm saying is lot 20 is the only available piece
Well,
up there.
I'm just talking generally speaking. I'm not talking about what's going to happen if it ever would. So I think just so we can get a quicker set of meetings than your last set.
Oh, I know.
Right, we come up-
I had to withdraw that without
I know.
prejudice
I know.
because of
Exactly.
the
But,
conflict.
but you're going to get some engineering so we can at least see on paper. Then the consultants can decide and the board can decide if they feel that's safe and go from there.
Okay.
But right now, this has a right to be worked on because it is a plotted piece of roadway,
Yeah.
as you know.
All right.
Okay?
All right. Got it.
So the next thing is on your court, so see what you can come up with.
Get an
I wish we
engineer.
had a planner that, as you were going through the engineering, you could get some outside advice to make sure you're in the right direction, but hopefully if you hire someone that's worked in the town, they'll be able to give you at least a sketch, nothing fancy, just a sketch.
Everybody
Right.
just told me safe and adequate.
Right. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
All right, we have, thank you guys for waiting. I know it's like 95 degrees up here, it's probably back there too. We have resumes for 4 people that would like to be an associate member, and I have all of them. And they go from the top of the page down. Let's see, I'm assuming she stapled them in the right order. Everybody has maybe 5 minutes just to give us your background, and the board will ask a few questions, and we're hopefully going to make a decision at our next meeting. And I think we'll probably just let Michelle watch the meeting and come up with her thoughts, okay?
That's fine.
We have a joint meeting with the selectmen, I think, the beginning of October on the housing plan, so we can vote it then. The first one I have in front of me is from Devin Howe. Devin, how are you? Come on up.
Come on down.
Actually, you want to sit next to Kevin?
Come on over.
That's actually better, yeah.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A little bit about your background, Kevin, and actually why you want to join the board.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'd first and foremost like to apologize. I have a little bit of a dry cough right now, and it's...
Some water?
No. That won't help.
Right.
As he can't get rid of the punch, that's okay.
But just once again, for the record, my name's Devin Howe. Currently an associate member on the Norfolk Zoning Board of Appeals. And My background, I work for Beals Associates. We're a planning, engineering, permitting, and management firm in Boston. And typically what we do on a day-to-day basis is zoning analysis, conceptual planning, land planning analyses, feasibility studies, all the way through engineering to construction documents. I personally worked on a multitude of different projects, like I've said, from conceptual phases to some of our most recent projects with Boston Landing, the new Celtics practice facility, the Red Auerbach Center, the Music Center at Indian Hill in Groton. It's currently under construction. I played a large part in the permitting and engineering for that project.
So you got a degree in civil engineering?
Yes, a bachelor's
And
degree
you're an
in civil
associate
engineering.
member of the planning board?
Zoning board.
The zoning board, right?
Yep.
You like it there?
Yes, it's a good experience.
What do you see, because I've got my own thoughts, what do you see as the interconnection if you're an associate member here as well as on the ZBA?
That's a good question. I think that seeing the connection from when someone comes for a permit here and they require a special permit or variance before the ZBA, and being able to see the whole reasoning for why they might need that variance or special permit.
It is sort of like cross-connection. The ZBA deals with it from one particular aspect, which is normally hardship issues or
Yeah.
variance, or special permits. Most of the special permits that require land use were all changed years ago to be under the jurisdiction of the planning board. But, Walter, any questions for Devin? Right.
Yeah, the ZBA deals with different issues than we do. I mean,
Yeah.
We're charged with the responsibility of blessing plans that come in front of us and seeing that they conform to the zoning bylaws and also the aesthetic desires of the town as well. You don't want the town to look really odd. There are some towns around here that don't seem to have a lot of zoning bylaws, and you'll find a house next to a business, next to a garage. I mean, it's just awful. And then the design of those things are not particularly good either. So our job is a little different, and we have a lot of folks to help us, and any expertise that we can bring to the table from that set of help is really of value. And so your background as a civil engineer, EIT for registered engineer, that's what you're trying to get to, right? Registered professional engineer?
Yep, approximately a year away.
Yeah, and you got to take exams as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That would be of value to the board, I think.
One of the questions the selectmen always ask is if there was an opening and you, because the theory is the associate member moves up to a full member.
In theory.
The theory, yeah. But to get through the theory, you have to go through an election process. So
In theory.
what they've been asking forever, most people don't want to run through an election. You know why. Would you be interested if there were an opening and if you were here trained as the next best person, because you had some background, would you be willing to run for a full-time position?
I'd have to, when I'd encounter that, I'd have to review that. I'm not staying in Norfolk
Fair
forever.
question. Right. Fair question. Fair answer, I should say.
Excuse me. But yeah, I think part of it, to answer that question, beyond a year, maybe year and a half, I'm not sure how long I'll be, in Norfolk.
Mhm.
But until that point in time, I think I'd like to contribute to this town as much as I can.
Is that the sort of the baseline motivation? I understand that you want to put your education to work, and we certainly appreciate that. A lot of us have a sort of a underlying motivation of just sort of, doing our service to the town or being a part of, the progress of Norfolk. So can you kind of just speak to sort of maybe like a personal as opposed to professional motivation?
Sure. I've lived in this town for 24 years, so I've quite a motivation for this town. It's truly seeing this town grow has been very interesting. Going off to college and coming back and seeing all the seeing developments pop up here and around town, I think is interesting. I'd like to be a part of just the review process. Excuse me, and ensuring that everything that's submitted is in compliance with the law.
Kevin, your last question?
Just that, the ZBA is borderline 3 meetings a month right now, and doesn't look like that's really going to slow down at any point with the frequency of proposals that are being put forth. And then, in addition, these meetings never do run over with those. I don't think they will be anymore, at least. So that sounds like a pretty big commitment going into the foreseeable future. Do you feel that you're prepared to be able to accommodate for that?
That was one consideration before I did apply to the board. I did think about that for a while, and I had some communication with Betsy to just make sure that, excuse me, that there wouldn't be overlap between the two boards, and that I would be able to handle being on both boards.
Perfect.
All right, Kevin, thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Aaron, how are you?
Excited.
You're excited, huh?
I thought it would be. I thought you would say hot. Well, that too, huh?
Hello, everyone.
Same thing. Give us a little background and tell us why you want to join. You're on the design review now, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Name is Aaron Hunt. I'm at 266 Main Street. Going on 8 years in town. Grew up in Medfield. I'm an architect by training and license. I work in Boston for Gensler and work mostly on large commercial mixed-use projects. Involvement here in town, or my personal connection, just being in town, I have no plans to go anywhere else in the future. We're staying until something unforeseen changes. And just through I guess some need to be involved with the town, I am involved. So we've got Norfolk Lions Soccer. I'm on a zoning advisory committee, and I'm on the design review board here in town. So part of that evolution, I guess, is moving me towards a more permanent position in town, which this seems like a nice step. I thought the associate position was a nice introduction rather than going through the election process to learn more about the board and those things. So it seems like the next evolution in my interests and background in trade and the town. So
Aaron was also on our zoning working committee. He was part of the 2-year ordeal with Southwood, yes.
Was it only 2 years?
yes, I was thinking 3.
So what have you learned about the town by being on the DRB, Design Review Board?
Well, interesting, not that much, because we've only had 2 or 3 meetings since I've been on the board. But the level of review that projects go through in this town is pretty extensive. But I think that's a good thing for the town. I mean, it's a part of protecting the interests of the town. And the design review board is another measure in that process. But I think with the zoning conversations we had and the planning board itself, does a little bit more of the design aspects of things. But the design review board is really the one, that's less talking about whether you have the right to do it, and more talking about whether we like the way it looks or not.
Right.
So it's just a different end of the spectrum in terms of review of a project, which, it's a nice variety.
Turn the project 90 degrees and look at it from a different direction, yeah.
Guys all set? Aaron, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in and waiting. Are you Jim or Mike? Are you Jim or Mike?
I'm Jim.
All right, Jim.
Aaron and I coach baseball.
Friendly competition.
Yeah, we're on the same team. Jim Wilson, I live on 17 Long Meadow Road. I've been in Norfolk for 10 years. I lived in Dedham before. I haven't done anything with government yet. My oldest son, I coached 8 years, 15 seasons of soccer, and moved to Dedham. I've got 3 younger kids in school, 2 with autism. My youngest, my middle son, coached soccer. It ended up being me coaching other kids because he really didn't like it so much. And then I coached 2 seasons of baseball, and now the son's kind of grown out of that. I see what's going on in town. When I was in school, I got a degree in forest management. Could have got a degree minor in soils. I did independent study mapping soils in Coos County. I ran the lab for community development. We had a computer program that would estimate town budget, school budget. So I made, as an independent study, a school budget and a town budget to run with the program. So I understand, the hydrology, looking even at like Lawrence Street, when you're doing cut grades with an alluvial deposit that's there, what 200 sewer systems are going to do to a water supply in that watershed. Looking at like High Street, I don't understand why the contractor is not working with the neighbor to alleviate a lot of these issues. And, I see with
Is this High Street?
The High Street, yeah.
Which one is that?
The one he was here tonight. Because I watched a couple of video presentations.
I'm losing word.
I don't know High Street.
Union Street, I'm sorry.
Union Street.
The one with the neighbor.
With Mark McGuckin and
Right.
What was
credit
your
union.
question?
The credit union.
Yeah, so Union Street, so I'm sorry. So my issue with the developer is he hasn't really worked with the neighbor. And my point of view
Well,
is-
actually, we have.
But no, I mean, as he came today and the plans he hadn't shown the neighbor.
Well, that was a traffic plan, but just
Oh.
so you know, we were out on the neighbor's site for 2 hours
Oh, okay.
after the first meeting. So he was the first one to actually go out there. I joined them because I was asked by the abutter,
Yeah.
but he was, and every single thing that the neighbor was looking for, he did.
Okay,
Plus-
because I saw a video meeting, I watched a couple of video meetings, I saw him up there talking about his trees and that stuff, and I saw,
That's why the neighbor actually wasn't at this meeting, because all of his issues were settled. He said he
okay.
wasn't coming.
So that's, from my point of view, as, a potential associate member, I'm looking at, granted, he's in a mixed zone area, person has a right to build a building. But I feel it's my position to make sure that we do, within the law, what we can to make it aesthetically pleasing for the town and work with the neighbor. He's got, 2 small kids. They're overlooking a building with a backlot, and, the same empathy you showed for the gentleman when, they've got their sewer pipe issue.
Yeah.
We have due diligence to help out people, on the same time with what we can.
What if you were on the board and there was something like that with a zoning line where the project being built, and it's always best to work with the neighbors, always. That's just the shortest way to get your success. What if you thought it was really imperative on the filing before us to work with the neighbor, and the guy says, no, I don't want to deal with him, he's been really rude to me? What would you do?
Work with the developer, sit him down and say, look, we've, in your best interest, the amount of money that you're funding, that you've purchased this property for, and you're going to a monthly meeting at your expense for all the people that are coming.
And you try to convince them.
And try to convince him that, you know what, you got to understand from his point of view, think of you being there with 2 small kids and developing a lot, he has potential worries.
What if he still said no? Would that affect your decision or activity on the balance of the project?
No. You'd still have to at that point, you tried to do or want to do what was good for both, but still have to follow what
People have rights.
people have right. I mean, he's building a building legally in a permitted area. It's not like he's in a residential, an R1 or R2 or R3, and he's asking to put in an office building. He's in a mixed zone,
Yeah.
which he has the right to do. So, and I feel for both sides, and I think just trying to remedy the situation, so you show the guy, it's in your best interest to settle as soon as possible.
If, with your background, you'd also be good on the Conservation Commission, always looking for good members. Or, of course, the Board of Health, you've got a great background for too, but that's an elected position, they don't have an associate. Would either with the Conservation Commission or another board work
That
for
was
you
fun.
if this didn't work out for you?
Right, I mean, right now, I see what's going on in the town. We're not going anywhere. The school system, it's an awesome school system. And that's the main reason that, at least, I wasn't looking at an elected position yet, because I hadn't been involved in town
I don't blame
politics
you.
at all. And I don't think that'd be fair to the people in town to just show up and say, I'm going to be able to help you when I don't know any of you personally, where either the boards are going.
Conservation is appointed.
I saw that as one of them also. I had just called, and I think I talked to you, and then I talked to someone else about what was going on in town, because I called because I guess woke up to the 40B of what was actually going on. And I'm like, well, I said to my wife, I've got time, and this is important as, donating time to the kids for sports. Just the donating time that's going to allow our kids to be in a school system that has 15 to 18 kids in the classroom and not 25 to 30.
All right, so you're interested in making a contribution to the town either way, right?
Exactly.
Super. You can
So,
always,
I mean, if-
always use people.
Yeah.
Walter?
To steal Kevin's question,
Right.
would you be willing to run for elected position, should you become an associate member? And then down the road,
Right.
seat opens?
If there were an opening, I'm not going to run against Greg if I'm on the. I'm Greg.
Great, you're safe. You're
No,
safe
but
there.
if there were an opening, yes.
Okay.
An opening means that there's nobody running from.
I'm a professional
Okay.
candidate.
No, if there were an opening, yes.
Understood, okay.
All right.
I'm not doing this as a temporary thing. It's a permanent thing. It's with the physical conditions that my kids have, I'm not going to be able to coach them. And this is something they can donate to the town. I
And
have
your
the
only agenda
background.
is to help the town, to contribute. Is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Jim. It's nice to meet you, and like I said, we're gonna be talking about this at our next meeting, and meeting with the selectmen and appoint somebody.
Okay.
It was a pleasure meeting all you guys.
Yes,
Very
sir.
nice to see you again.
Thanks very much, guys.
Good night.
Thanks.
I guess our
Thanks, Jim,
last,
thanks, Aaron.
our last applicant, Mike, didn't come, or he got tired of waiting, which I wouldn't blame him.
Especially in the heat.
No commitment.
Right. Right, so all we get left is,
Business.
you got that Frederickson Road plan that we can endorse?
And also the sign, the
Right,
Brook Street
right, I'm
sign.
looking for the easy one first.
Well, the sign's easy, isn't it? We're all going to sign that, aren't we? There's no reason not to sign that.
Well, it all depends. I've been in a sign hearings here that went 20 minutes. But anyway, we don't have to vote on this, do we? This was just that administrative changes made, right?
Yep, you just need your endorsement.
That's it, okay, so we can just leave that, then we can go right onto the sign. And you're gonna take the lead on the sign, Walter,
am.
because I know you've already read it.
I have
so-
read it, yes.
Perfect, and what do you come up with for,
mean,
Gino's already reviewed it, Gino had for a couple of minor changes.
Yeah, basically typo.
And Betsy corrected those already? See that?
Here it is, here. Have we voted on this before? Yeah, we did. We voted a grant, right? All we have to do is sign this thing, right?
Yep, you need to vote on it.
We haven't voted.
And then sign it.
He's assuming we're,
Oh, I see, okay.
this is the sign down on that mixed use on,
Riverside.
Riverside.
River's
It's a
Edge,
Holbrook sign.
signed on 115.
Yeah, I thought we
Proposed a
already, I
bunch
thought
of
we already
signs.
approved that.
I thought we voted on it as well.
You close
I
the
could be
hearing.
wrong.
Close the hearing.
You didn't vote on the
Okay.
decision.
Okay, all right. So, let me make a motion.
Please
Sir.
do.
I move to approve the special permit application decision number 2017-03 on the sign for Forex Corporation at 65 Holbrook Street.
Second.
Any discussion? Was a nice sign. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Pass that along for your
Yep, yep,
signature.
yep, yep.
Feeling your papers, like, are these all?
Nope, I'm pushing to the right.
You have anything else for us, Betsy? Just a
Just
minute?
a set of minutes, and Walter reviewed those. I made those changes.
Okay.
On the minutes?
Is it worth submitting a change to have my last name spelled with 2 Ks or no?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Second page, yes.
I'll make that change.
But after that, Walter's changes pretty much
Did
encompassed
I miss
everything.
it? Did I miss it? Oh, I missed.
Did I
Walter
spell
missed
your
a
name
typo.
wrong, Really?
Where did I miss it,
I'm
Kevin?
a little embarrassed.
You have a 6-month grace period for naming errors, so you're still good.
Where was it? I'll change it.
Second
Yeah,
page.
Page 2, the man says. I'm looking.
Right before new and old business, last paragraph.
Oh, that's page 3.
Oh, typo. Got it. I'll change it.
Kevin Calcutt.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the minutes of July 19th, 2017 as amended.
Comes from the secretary typically, right? He just made that motion. I heard him.
As moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Been a long, hot night.
It sure has.
All right.
We've had longer.
Motion to adjourn.
Not many hotter.
Second.
All those in
All in
favor?
favor?
Aye.
You guys can just sign that special permit.
Sure.